Hi, it's Mike Wilson. I wanted to share a couple of things today about what's happening in the real estate market. And in fact, I got a survey from the National Association of Realtors, and it's a survey of realtors in actually across the country. But I wanted to look at a couple of things, just two slides. I'm not going to go through the whole thing, obviously, but I wanted to look at two slides to talk a little bit about kind of what's happening in real estate today. The first one that I want to look at is, put this over here. The first one that I want to look at is about technology, and I've talked a lot about technology in the last couple of weeks, and how things are changing. People are using different technologies in real estate. So what this slide shows is it's a survey of realtors. So what are realtors using today to do business, to interact with clients, to interact with buyers and sellers? And the legend here has blue is sellers. The ones I want to point out are blue are sellers, and yellow are buyers. And then I'll look at this light blue one as well on two of them, because it's about realtors saying that they don't use this particular tool. And it's no surprise. Live videos are on the upswing. We use those. We have used live videos for a long time. We use them even more now. And when you think about live videos, it's different than virtual tours. Here's virtual tours. Up to like almost getting close to 50% of people are buyers and sellers are using virtual tours. And it's interesting that usually it's sellers. You're listing a house, you create a virtual tour to showcase the house, obviously. Even today we're using 3D technology, so 3D imaging to showcase not only the house itself and a virtual walkthrough, but also the floor plan, the virtual floor plan. You can look at our listings and see some of that technology right now, active today. But virtual tours, that is pretty high. I'm actually kind of surprised it's not higher than that. Nearly every listing that I see has a virtual tour. 100% of ours have virtual tours and have had for a while, for years. But live videos would be the agent-guided videos. Live video when the agent is in the house and their buyer is at home. So kind of a remote showing, a lot more of that's going on. I'm kind of surprised, this is one I'm very surprised that over half of realtors say that they just flat don't even use that. That's getting to be an integral part of the way that we do business. And I think that's a trend that's going to continue, not just continue, pick up steam, pick up speed. It'll be more prevalent into the future. But those two are very similar. The live videos, virtual tours gets a lot of press and a lot more use for those with social distancing, obviously. And honestly, the fear of people going out and going into other people's houses, sellers having fear of people coming into their houses, that type of a thing. The other related technology is WebEx and Zoom. And let's see, I'm not on. Well, you might be watching this on a Zoom meeting, so we tend to do Zoom and then replay those as videos on our website. But Zoom technology, think Zoom, WebEx obviously is another one. But even Google Hangouts, Webinar Jam, any webinar type of a meeting, but it's really expanded over to video chats. So Google Hangouts, WhatsApp has Duo. I mean, there's all kinds that are common today. Surprised also that 60% of agents almost 60% of agents just don't use that technology. That's getting to be commonplace for us. Melena and I have used these types of technologies for years, so we already have quite a bit of experience. So it's not really new to us. We have the skills and the experience. We've been in a virtual brokerage for several years now, and our brokerage has a virtual office software. So it's very common for us to have virtual meetings with our brokers, with support staff, with transactions, with everybody in the entire brokerage. So other agents, clients, that's pretty common. I expect that to continue and to pick up steam as well. There's a lot of benefits to being able to leverage these types of tools and these types of efficiencies. So I expect those to all continue, but they're getting pretty overlapped. Zoom, for example, and a live video, you might be able to tell those apart. You might not be able to. Some messaging apps aren't just for messaging. It's video messaging now. So you can use some of the messaging apps for actually kind of communicating on a video chat. So it's kind of blurring the lines, but the main thing, it's very easy to do now. It's very becoming very prevalent. It's easy, it's inexpensive, and it just flat works. The bandwidth also to support it, I think, is now in place in most places. So we did virtual tours. Okay, so, in social media, obviously very prevalent there. That's one of the highest percentages usage for agents interacting with clients and customers and each other. To be honest, we interact on multiple social media platforms, getting to be very commonplace. And nearly everybody, the acceptance rate is extremely high. Nearly everybody is active on at least one social media platform. So we can meet our clients where they already are active. And that makes it a lot easier, and it makes it comfortable for people to communicate that way. So that one's going up. All of these digital technologies and all of these digital communication tools, they're in the right place at the right time. Today, we can't really have the meetings, the face-to-face meetings like we have had to do business. And because we have these tools in place, the business hasn't necessarily slowed down. It is perhaps slowed down by people's choice, but the people that choose to have a real estate transaction, or need, especially those that need to have a real estate transaction, the tools are already in place, so it can be done. It's a little bit different, but it's, for us especially, it's not a lot different because we already use the tools. Last two I want to talk about are e-signatures. Think DocuSign, DigiSign. Think just almost everything that gets signed today probably goes through a digital signature, a secure digital signature type of a program. They're very commonplace. They're in almost all businesses. Nearly everybody's touched those. So very high acceptance. It's pretty mature technology as well. Even more mature than most of the others that I've already mentioned here. Last one's actually my favorite, e-closing technology. We're creeping up to 50% usage by agents, 40%, okay, not quite 50, 40% sellers, 22% buyers, and 22% sellers. In our experience, it's actually just the reverse. And the reason for that is that lenders tend to be kind of the last holdouts. They're the ones that need the wet signatures. They're the ones that require the on-site direct notaries. So the 100% e-closing technologies tend to be held up by one or two of the players in the transaction. And the ones that are the most hesitant are kind of the last to adopt. Oftentimes are lenders. If you think about it, they've got they're risking the most. They're the ones that are bringing the money to the transaction. So I don't. So I understand why they're the last ones, but this is a technology that and so sellers don't have that. They don't. There's not a lender on their side of it. The lender is on the other side. The lender is on the buyer side, obviously. So we have seen it's easier to have sellers do their side in an e-closing with 100% e-closing technology rather than buyers. And even today, there is a huge push on because you need to finish a transaction in real estate. You've got to finish the transaction, and it's the closing is the last piece of it. So you've got to figure out a way to do it. So there's a big push for lenders to get on board, develop their own systems, jump on other existing platforms that already are there for remote online notaries, work with title companies that are ahead of the game. There's a big push. I expect this crisis to actually kind of tip that over to where e-closings are becoming more and more common. And if you think about it as e-signatures being some years ahead, not just a few, quite a few years ahead in terms of their adoption, ahead of e-closing, total e-closings, that's probably what we're dealing with. But I expect that gap to close because for two reasons. One is the path that e-signatures took is essentially the path that e-closings will take. So we've been down that path there, and the last hurdles are now being kind of brought down by necessity of crisis. So one of the good things that comes out of this is likely to be the advancement of some of these technologies, and we're seeing it even today. We've had a partial, actually I'm not sure we've ever had a 100% e-closing. When people think about that, it's there's actually a lot of pieces in there, and when people say, oh, I did an e-closing, they probably did 80% or 90% of the closing was done full electronic and remote. When you hear it though, you think, oh, well, gosh, that's just like ordering from Amazon. It's 100%. I sat at my desk, I closed on a house, and it's not quite like that. Keith has a good kind of a good summary of that. I might put a link in it, link to that here, or talk about it in another video, because that e-closings are important. But suffice it to say that I think that they're going to be catching up, close that gap, and we'll see more and more of that. We'll see more and more closings use at least partially e-closing technology. So there's one other thing that I wanted to point out, and it was kind of about the, see, where am I? 6, let me see if I can get over here to 16. Here we go. Oops, let's cover that up a little bit. But client attitudes with regards to selling a house. So how are homeowners responding to coronavirus? And the big, huge red chunk there is delaying the process a couple of months. In our experience, it hasn't really been a couple of months, but it is delaying. It's, I just kind of want to wait and see. So a huge chunk of people are taking the stance that I want to wait and see. I don't have enough information. And that's exactly what we're seeing as well. They're showing about 60% here. We're not quite seeing that much in our area, maybe 50%, but a high number. And that's pretty common. I mean, think about yourself. I have the exact same position. It's like, gosh, I'm not sure, so I'm not ready to act. I'm not as confident taking action. So that accounts for about 50% of the people that we talk to. The clients that were considering selling this year are like, you know what? Let's keep talking about it, but let's see how things go. And but then the other more interesting section is here. This yellow is 17%, and then this even this one here, 8%. Continuing, the 17% is continuing the process but relying on virtual communication. That's nearly 100% of people. We push those technologies ourselves, as I've mentioned, but even in spite of that, other people are meeting us and asking for that. They're meeting us halfway. They're also requesting those technologies. They're requesting more remote, more virtual, more digital communications, and then they're confident going forward. And that's really what we're seeing. You add those two together, that's 17 and this 8%. This 8% is like no change, continuing to meet with clients in person and show properties in person. We actually do that, but it's with extreme caution and personal protective equipment, social distancing, hygiene, et cetera, et cetera. And you've heard me talk a lot about that. I think we kind of add those together, and we're seeing about 25-30% of the people that we work with are wanting to go forward, needing to go forward. And that's true whether they're sellers or they're buyers. And of course, we're right there with them, but the reality has changed. So we do wear masks, and we do stand a ways apart, and we do wipe down doorknobs, and we do wear gloves. And so, realtors kind of look like hospital personnel. We don't wear scrubs. And I don't want to take anything away from hospital personnel. Not the same thing. But the world has changed and the realities have changed. And so the way that we do business has changed. But I would say somewhere in the 25-30% are going forward. We're just going forward with them differently. It works differently and we use different tools. So interesting that a lot of agents are finding that exact same thing no matter where you are in the country. But I'm encouraged by the fact that there's probably about 25-30% of people in this in our area that are continuing to go forward and try to either buy or sell whatever it is that they are wanting or needing to do right now. Hope this information was helpful. Again, this was from the National Association of Realtors, and I just wanted to share it with you. If you know somebody else, that friend or family that would also be interested, that this would be helpful information for, please share it with them. Thanks. Have a great day.